Alrighty, so this is a presentation by our friends at LiveTiles, who have a fantastic tool for rapidly building and designing and deploying modern interfaces, user interfaces with just drag and drop, no code. It's great stuff. So I'll let Rich and Dave introduce themselves. And as I said, we're recording this and we'll blast it out to everybody who'd originally registered.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rich Hawks. I'm based in LiveTiles headquarters office, which is in New York City, and I am what they call an innovation executive. So I help our clients through both pre-sales, post-sales, and implementation of the LiveTiles platform.
Hi everybody, David Salter. I lead our innovation experience team. From a pre-sales perspective, my job's pretty simple. It's really just to listen to the needs of our customers and our partners and align that to the capabilities of our product. And today I will be taking you through it at a top level, the core capabilities of the product and trying to make it relevant and contextual to perhaps the needs of a higher education portal built on Office 365. Rich, did you want to cover off some background on the platform?
Yes, I would. It'd just take a few minutes. LiveTiles, the company's been around for about 3 years. We started as a systems integrator for SharePoint and took that IP and started to build out the LiveTiles platform. We've always been very connected with education. We are a company first based in Australia, but then moved our headquarters to New York City. We do have a LiveTiles product that is specifically for the K through 12 school system. That is a free download that we offer from our LiveTiles site, which is www.livetiles.nyc. And there's plenty of information about that. I know this is for higher education, but we do have plenty of school systems using the LiveTiles Mosaic product, which is the name of the free version for education. We are a product that sits on top of your SharePoint 0365 or your SharePoint Online instance. The nice thing about our product, and David will show you in a little while, that we don't do anything to harm or change what you've done to your SharePoint environment. We're only enhancing the experience and making it easier for folks to use and to build exciting, beautiful SharePoint software sites on top of the platform. And I'll leave it at that.
Terrific. So if one of the folks from Microsoft could make me presenter, I will share my screen and take you through it.
Sure, let me do that. Was that Dave who was asking that?
Yes, it is.
All right. Hold on just a moment. Having trouble in the interface finding which one is you. Oh, that's very strange. Give me just a second.
There we go. Terrific. Thanks very much. Okay, so perhaps if you could let me know when you can see my screen.
Not yet. There we go. Looks good.
Terrific. Okay, so what you're looking at is not a design per se. It's simply indicative of a capability to build something that is very branded and consumer grade on top of SharePoint in Office 365. In terms of the aesthetics, one thing that I always mention before I do these types of demonstrators is that LiveTiles doesn't look like anything per se. LiveTiles solutions built on top of Office 365 can look absolutely however you want. So I've gone with something very, very lightly branded in order not to make branding too much of a focus. But the key point is that from an aesthetic perspective, anything built with LiveTiles can look however you want. It's ultimately a design tool. What you're looking at is really a demonstrator of capability of LiveTiles to grab information from disparate parts of the very good Office 365 library of applications, but bring them together into a single experience that, depending on the needs of your higher education organisation, may resonate. Now, from our experience, and we have a number of higher education customers in both the United States, the UK and Australia, is that we are seeing a need for 4 very discrete experiences. Firstly, for students, then for faculty, for staff, and for alumni. And so one of the things that LiveTiles allows you to do is very quickly build out experiences that are relevant and contextual to the needs of those users. Just a few features on this page, which in and of themselves are not that important. It's how quickly we're able to build them. For example, search, fully integrated with all the powerful back-end search capabilities of SharePoint and Office 365. Take, for example, here we have a little widget. It's called Personal and Group Assignments. And what it's doing is it's a widget that's going out across the entire breadth of Office 365 applications and bringing back to me the last 5 documents that I have interacted with. So from the perspective of, for example, a student who's working in groups, they may be collaborating in a SharePoint team site, for example, and also have their own personal documents in a OneDrive amongst other sources. We're able to bring all that together for them into a single experience here. And you can see there are documents coming from the personal store of OneDrive and from SharePoint team sites. Down in this section I've called my dashboard. I'm really trying to blend a few different concepts here. First of all is really around the student's class schedule. Now, what we understand to be true in the higher education space is that there are a multitude of different systems out there, student management systems, for example, that store the student's schedule and allow them to nominate their classes, etc. Thankfully, we now live in the wonderful world of REST-based APIs, which effectively provides us mechanisms to go and make a request for that information and to render it out inside a single portal experience. So you can see here that I have the concept, and this comes from a real portal that we have done with a university based up in New Hampshire, an Ivy League university, where what they wanted to do in their portal, which is called Connect, for their students, is to bring assignments and grades and notifications from their particular student management system into the Office 365 portal. And in widgets very similar to this that you see here, we were able to do this. So in this example, the student can look at their assignments and grades, their upcoming class schedule, and perhaps notifications relevant to their student account here. When we go down to the next section, it's really about connecting students to other sources of information. It could be rich media like video. It could be social, where they're perhaps collaborating with other students in social clubs or other students in particular groups. The point here is not so much the functionality as it is LiveTiles' ability to bring all these disparate components of Office 365 together into a single user interface. Probably the final thing that I'll mention here is really kind of the art of the possible with regard to the emerging world of artificial intelligence, and that's a very broad topic, and in this case I'm picking one very small part of that, which is natural language processing. but in the context of a chat bot. So, for example, what we know from our university customers and college customers is that their student services departments are often overwhelmed with inquiries from students about all kinds of things. We have, in our research, determined that there is a very big opportunity for universities to look at using bots to answer some of those queries and to free student services staff up to focus on higher values tasks. So in this case, I have the SUNY bot, and this SUNY bot is capable of responding to particular questions that I might have. So for example, I'm going to ask the bot, I'm just going to refresh here. And I'm just asking the bot, and the bot is hopefully running in the background. Occasionally, I can see here the services just needs a bit of a refresh. There you go. So you can see here that the bot is now, I've asked the bot, can I take any information technology classes in my BA degree? And the bot has been able to interrogate a source where those answers are stored. Of course, like all information technology projects, there is the effort designed to define what a successful interaction looks like between the user and the bot, but that is a natural part of the process. And we certainly feel that bots and it is a discrete part of our product offering called LiveTiles bots can certainly add a lot of value there to higher education. As I said, the point here is not so much the functionality as how quickly and easy it is to build this custom development. So what I'm going to do is show you, in fact, how I built this experience out. When I go to the design view button here, what you can see is that my LiveTiles page is actually a series of containers into which we place our tiles. And our tiles are effectively a very, very comprehensive library of user interface components that you plug into one of three sources. Source one is Office 365 SharePoint data. So, for example, data stored in lists or documents stored in libraries. And you connect those widgets into your libraries. And I won't go into the detail here other than to say it's all done through very, very basic configuration, as you can see here. There's absolutely no code involved in doing any of these things. The second source from which we can gain or plug into Office 365 data are the external applications that aren't in SharePoint. And so we're talking about things like Power BI, Yammer, Planner. What we have are discrete tiles up here in the gallery to allow you to bring the best of those experiences into that single pane of glass for your students or your staff or your alumni, etc. Finally, we have full support for connecting to RESTful APIs via a tile called the custom tile. That is no longer in the domain of, for example, the no-code ethos of our product. So if you can imagine that 90% of what we do at LiveTiles is about no-code, pure configuration, and that is how we really achieve that kind of low-cost, low-risk, quick-to-market approach. We accept that in complex organisations, perhaps like a SUNY, there are going to be needs to integrate with a system like a student management system or perhaps an alumni management system. Providing those systems have a REST-based API and providing you have some skills in-house to work with JavaScript, then we provide a mechanism to connect, and it very much accelerates the process there. When I click on this little button here, it takes me through to the LiveTiles design app. And it really features three core things: the ability to create experiences, either from a very good series of proven tested templates that we offer, or from a completely blank page. The ability for an IT team and indeed power users within the business. This platform is very much about empowering distributed power users to own their content and experiences. A console to manage those things. So, for example, security and permissions. Under the hood, it all uses SharePoint. We don't introduce any new mechanisms for that. We simply make it an easier process. Managing any templates that you've produced, because obviously what's important is scalability and repeatability. Perhaps you develop a template for student projects, or perhaps you develop a template for a site based on a campaign to various alumni. You can create those templates through time and store them and roll them out to various sites within your Office 365 as required. You can also template branding, as you can see here, individual components, and finally, something I'm very proud of, all of our support is built directly into the app, and that takes really three forms. We have a very, very comprehensive online knowledge base here that allows anyone to search for information on how to use any of our features, and they're very, very well written articles. We have instant live chat 24/7, 5 days a week with an Office 365 and LiveTiles expert, and that gives you coverage Monday to Friday, but typically because we have staff around the world, you're actually getting much more coverage than that. And of course, we have a formal ticketing system. So that's the kind of basics of the console where, for example, an IT applications team or a power user in the business would control these experiences that they are creating. When I create from a blank canvas here, you'll start to see the drag, drop, no code, point and click to configure design in motion. So just to create something to demonstrate that, up here across the top, I have my library of proven tested components that really represent 15 years of SharePoint consulting and understanding what it is customers typically want to do in the user interface and turning those into products rather than things that need to be custom developed. So if I take, for example, this navigation tile, it plugs directly into my SharePoint navigation. In this case, I'm going to go with global. But in order to style it, you can see here that I'm simply clicking a series of buttons. I don't need to know any CSS. And in terms of defining the behavior, so for example, let's make it a very modern responsive menu. I simply click my way to that outcome, as you can see here. Just to reiterate now the connection between these components and SharePoint, I'm just going to drag some very generic tiles onto a page. So let's take, for example, something as simple as a news slider. This news slider has a series of configuration options relevant to the needs of a news slider, and there are many which I won't go through today. But the point is that they represent all those things that you typically used to need to configure through lengthy projects. We have turned them into basic configuration options, which obviously allows you to get to the end result much quicker. The way that these connect into SharePoint, if you're making that investment in SharePoint as a content management system in Office 365, is quite simple. These tiles look up to your SharePoint architecture, which you can browse through. And in this case, I have my sample news stored in a subsite, and I'm selecting that sample news, or perhaps a filtered view of that content, and I'm connecting it in. To reiterate the point there, perhaps I'm now connecting to some documents, and I do the same. I connect my tile into documents. To now show you how we connect into other sources of data within Office 365, perhaps in my experience, I now want to connect to a Power BI widget. In addition to the ability to develop on top of LiveTiles, we have productized into no code a large number of connectors into other systems, so Yammer, Power BI, and indeed into non-Microsoft systems, for example, various large CRM platforms like Dynamics CRM, Box, Dropbox, because we really do believe that, albeit this is a Microsoft product, that we should listen to the needs of users and allow them to bring what it is they define as their information needs into that experience. You can see here that I can now connect again through pure configuration into a particular data set. And again, the point is not so much the functionality as the speed at which I can take this baseline experience of drag, drop and configure and turn it into something very, very relevant and contextual to the needs of my users. I'm going to stop for questions very, very shortly, but before I do, I'll cover off on two very important points. One is mobility, and that is that absolutely everything we build is built for a mobile context. You can see here that my page is fully mobile responsive. You can see here. So what you can confidently deliver to your staff, students, alumni, etc., is a mobile portal without needing to design separate pages. This is simply a mobile responsive version of the same web page. It is, however, a very powerful mobility in that you can very much design for the needs of the mobile user. So let's say, for example, we determine that on the mobile device, the students don't actually need to see their assignments and grades. You, as a designer, can deprecate that from the experience on a mobile device. It does, however, from a maintenance perspective, remain one single SharePoint experience. And you'll see, as I deprecate my experience down to a tablet or a phone, that that component has disappeared. And when I go back up to the desktop, it has reappeared. There are many other things I could show from the mobility in terms of how you control it. But the key takeaway is that you can produce a totally consumer-grade mobile web experience and confidently deliver to your users across any device. And that's something that it works very, very well. The other thing that I do want to cover off on is the simplicity of templating for the purposes of scaling and repeating solutions. So, for example, let's determine that this widget here will always look like this. This widget that looks at the logged in user, in this case Showcase, and presents them the 5 most recent documents they looked at. I can template that, and we just call it widget 1. I can also template entire page and site experiences by clicking Save As, a template, and I'm going to call it template 1. It all happens in this simple click. When I go back to my console, where I discussed we have the concept of managing those objects, for example, widget 1 and my page, template 1, are stored as repeatable objects here. From the perspective of using it, I simply go into my template, I invoke it, and perhaps now instead of producing the home page, I'm producing a landing page for student services, and I can begin going in and customizing that page. So we'll just pretend here, click done, and save as a page down into the part of my architecture where the student services page would live. So that really covers off in very brief format. There's obviously much more I could show you, but with limited time, I'll stop there. The core operation of LiveTiles design and how it really allows you to build out very compelling portals very quickly and at much lower cost and risk compared to custom development. So I'm going to stop there and pause for any questions from the folks on the call. I can see we've got Amy and Bob and Paul. Any questions, folks? on anything you've seen?
No, that's fantastic stuff. It's amazing what you can do so quickly.
Yes, and one of the things that we are upfront about is that what LiveTiles is focusing on very much is the user experience. It doesn't mean that there won't be work on the customer's side to do the things that are a requirement in any information systems project. So step one for me is always empathizing with the needs of the end user. LiveTiles won't in and of itself negate the need to go and discover what's important to your students, your staff, your faculty, your alumni. Nor will it negate the need to build out some of the back end of SharePoint and Office 365. You obviously need places to store content. But what we can confidently say is that once you've defined your requirements, the time taken to get from your vision to the end result is minuscule compared to what it used to take through a lengthy process of custom development, or even just configuring SharePoint to do what you want it to do. And we've put a lot of effort into making sure the experience of envisioning, designing and implementing is shortened. And I genuinely believe, and this is the reason I left personally the consulting world, is that I saw these wonderful, let's call them user experience and development operations tools coming out. And I very much saw an opportunity there to do things better, to do them faster, to do them cheaper. And most importantly, to start getting value out of your Office 365 subscription, because there are some wonderful tools in here. And most importantly, to start delivering something of value to your users, and that's something that we focus on very, very heavily. So, Rich, I might hand back to you for some kind of closing words and perhaps a call to action from any folks on the call or watching the webinar.
Yes, thank you, David. So this is Rich Hawks. I can be reached at rich.hawks, that's HAWKS, at livetiles.nyc. Glad to schedule a specific demo for you and your team, and to see how we can help. Again, we are very much committed to the higher education. It's fundamentally part of our heritage, and we'd love to have the opportunity to work with you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Great presentation. We will be getting the recording up online and notify all the folks who'd originally planned on attending, who probably can't because of the snow that's hitting. So thank you again for your time, and you'll be hearing from us, I'm sure.
Fantastic. And just one final point, guys. We do have some very, very happy higher education customers who I'm sure would be more than happy to and are providing references. So don't hesitate to reach out for those in future, because we have delivered some great student and faculty portals recently that we can talk through. And interestingly, they're actually both very different between the two that I've worked on in the last few months. So some very good stories to tell there.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
sure,
everybody.
great. Thank you, guys.